Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and More Stories 3. Today I want to just talk about farming monsties efficiently, because maybe you want a specific monstie, maybe you want a strong version of it, maybe you're trying to farm great genes to then slam into main monsties you're running, or say S-grade versions of those genes for more potent effects. Knowing the mechanics of how to do that and how to best spend your time doing it should be helpful, so here's a guide on exactly that. Let's start with the basic concept of the den and then scale it up into useful information. Now obviously you have different kinds of dens. We have the normal monster den. You got the golden rare dens, which are slightly better. You have these platinum style very rare dens, which are the best. And then you have some other kinds of dens, like for example the endangered dens, and then the green retreat dens. In most cases, the very rare den is what you want. But when you're in a den, when pulling eggs from a nest, you'll have a limited amount before a monster notices you and attacks, and you're basically forced out. Or maybe you'll just pull like your 5th egg, and then all the eggs stop spawning. That's it. So obviously you want to reach the den exit with an egg before that happens. And if a monster notices you, you can kite it out and make it to the exit in time. If you do get into a fight though with a monster, and quick finish isn't an option, you will actually have to beat the monster to then keep the egg that you have. But if a monster catches you, it is still possible to keep the egg, which is good to know. Obviously, greed can be punished, and again, most monsters can be outran with good pathing, or even say sidestepped when they pause. But the worst case is if it's a fanged wyvern, because they're a lot faster than the rest, as you probably will experience. So if that's the problem monster in the nest, then you gotta weigh that in. Another aspect of this is the den events. So you might just enter a den and there's an event. And there's not like a massive list that I'm aware of. You could either have a double nest, so that's perfect egg re-rolling because it's essentially infinite eggs or near infinite. You get to go in and just keep looking until you get the egg you want. And you get to come out with 2 of them because you have 2 slots. But the other ones are things like lots of resources, so there's loads of spawns to pick up, including a chest with some useful loot in it. Or the barrel cats one, so there's a bunch of felines running around with barrels. These provide you with XP, and you want to break those barrels with a barrel bomb. But it's very important to know that these den events are most likely at night. So if you are farming dens in any context, it's better to do it at night. Now the most valuable den is the very rare platinum one. There isn't one on my map right here, so I need to refresh the map to re-roll the spawns to try to spawn a very rare den. You got a couple options for this, like leaving the game and reopening it, or I can literally just open the map and pull up the world map and go to a different zone and come back. This obviously involves some load times. An alternative to that is to go into a sort of mini area like the Blightstone Woods and this long corridor. The best way to use one of these though is actually in a more physical way, because these entrances are literally right here on the map. So I can just go up to them, use the Ashen Pass, not go through a bunch of menus at all, and then turn around and come back from the pass in half a second. And with that we re-roll the map, and as you can see, a den has now spawned as super rare or very rare. There is a fast reload option in each region, right? For example, in Region 2, there's the narrow passage external area for that kind of reload. And this kind of reloading is even more valuable because you want to do it all at night, right? Whereas if you teleport to a town, it kind of forces you to day. The mechanical rule for these super rare dens and actually spawning them is that they're meant to spawn far away in obscure locations. That doesn't always seem to be the case, certainly not in Azuria, which there isn't really obscure locations on this map, so that maybe that's why it happens. But this is a very common super rare den spawn for whatever reason that is right next to the Ashen Pass. So this is even more efficient at going in and out, because you know it's not even a far travel time to reach that super rare den just up there on that hill. Another example of that will be the second region of Canalta. There's the caravan fast travel spot in the mountains near the top middle called Mount Canalta, and right next to that is a den spawn. This is a very reliable, very rare or super rare den spawn, because even though it's right next to a spawn point, it's actually really high up in the air. You need a monstie that can climb the walls, because the den is at the highest point of the map. So maybe that's why it's an obscure location and why it's commonly up there. So it's a very consistent method there too. Now, to increase your odds of getting the eggs you want or modifying them in different ways, you have a bunch of options. The most important obvious one is to enter dens at night, which increases the den event chance. If we're farming eggs, we want the double nest event ideally, because again, you're going to be able to essentially infinitely pick up eggs until you get the one you want, or at very least a rarer version of it if that's your goal. Other options then will be things like food buffs, which can really help with this kind of farming. A few relevant options would be these. We have grain dishes, which start as 2 power fruit to cook, and then the default buff from that is increased item gathered, which is useful. But if you cook with added ingredients when you have the recipe, you get special bonuses. The recipe for the paint sauce noodles will be great for retreating, which is an important method. If we add 2 raw meat, 2 blue mushrooms, and 2 paint berries with that recipe, you have increased odds of finding a specific Monstie egg, because it gives you more XP in battle, but also increases the retreat chance. Combine that with a paintball against a target and try to achieve an S rank in the fight itself, and you massively increase the odds that the monster retreats, which will then spawn a special green den. Inside that will always be a double nest, it's guaranteed. So you get to come out with 2 copies of specifically the retreated monster's egg. There are no other egg types. And you get to essentially infinitely re-roll those eggs until you get a rare or very rare version of that egg. It's a perfect way to spam loot eggs and roll the odds in your favor, especially if you've habitat restored that Monstie in that subzone to S tier. Anyway, other options available like vegetable dishes. The base of that is 2 herbs, 1 nullberry and 1 blue mushroom. But if you have the grape berry pie recipe, you can increase items gathered in the field, but more relevant, increase den appearances in the field, so there's just more in the map. That will require 2 many berries, 2 azure grapes, and 2 power fruit, but is a fantastic way to spawn more of these dens when you're rolling those odds. 2 other options exist though that I want to mention. There's this one, by adding 2 brute bone smalls, 1 Anes Freesia, and 2 paint berries, we get to encounter no monsters at the start of the den, which makes it a lot less likely you'll be interrupted, which I think is nice, but not major. Or finally, you could go for this one, where it's 2 power fruit, 2 brute bone smalls, and you get increased chance of lucky events in the den, which again, ideally, would be the double nest. Now, as I mentioned, habitat restoration plays into very rare den farming. If you habitat restore a Monstie all the way to S tier, it's very likely that you're going to pull that egg, and also that it's going to be a very super potent egg. In that context, you want to make sure that the very rare den that you're spam spawning is also in that subzone to benefit from that effect. To the point where you may just feel like refreshing the map over and over until a super rare den actually spawns in that subzone. So that is another layer of RNG to consider if you are doing that. Now, if you are doing the rare gene farming method, we want to lean into that as we just mentioned. You want the very rare den because you're trying to get the highly potent egg. Highly potent eggs have benefits like better stats, and if you have the ecosystem rank S from the habitat restore, then you're going to get an S grade gene of some kind to work with, such as we see this S grade version of Royal Decree. Inflict attack down on all enemies, but because it's S grade, it's even more potent. And this is also how you'll raise these numbers, so anti-paralysis here is medium. If it was S grade, then it'd be a large, just having more potent effects. It's also important to be aware that the highly potent eggs have the best chance for good generic genes. So yes, some Monsties have specific moves and stuff, but generic genes in large often make the base of a strong Monstie. So yeah, you pick a subzone that has a reliable and known very rare den spawn. Let's go back to the example in Region 2, that mountain spawn from Mount Canelta. With the Catavan fast travel being right there, you can just swap regions, go back and forth until it spawns that very rare den, which it usually does right on top of that hill, so remember to climb up with a Monstie. Logically then, you've picked a Monstie you want to farm rare genes from in this context, and ideally, you've habitat restored it to S tier in this subzone where that specific reliable super rare den spawns. If you are wanting to full commit, then I guess you could have all the subzones with that Monstie restored to S tier, but that's a lot more time investment, even if it would result in making the farm easy, because any super rare den would work. But anyway, just remember that when pulling from these super rare dens, unless it's a double nest, you are going to be stuck with roughly 5 or less pulls. It's usually best to take the very rare platinum egg that it gives you as soon as you find one, so that you don't end up leaving something less rare or lose it to a Monstie attack. Finally, another gene farming option will be tied to retreating. If you have an S rank Monstie via the habitat system in that subzone, then sure, you can run around and open the nests, but you also have a really high chance of just bumping into the monster itself, which then if you retreat, you get the guaranteed eggs. You could do the thing where we eat the food and increase the retreat odds, paintball it, S grade, all that, and follow it for the infinite egg pull. And if you're in an S grade habitat, it's extremely valuable stuff. The problem here is that it's a lot easier said than done, because you might be targeting a monster that's just way above your pay grade, but as soon as that is an option for your target, I do strongly recommend that method. But yeah, there you have it. That's my overview of den, gene, and general Monstie farming. If this was useful to you, drop a like and good luck with your farming efforts. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.